Today on Power Women of Queens, Lucia Dragos meets Pat Glunt, the founder and conductor of the Jackson Heights Orchestra.
You know, what I wanted to do was conduct, and the opportunities for women back then were not so great. We were kind of looked at like we had three heads. If you suggested, well, I want to conduct. Well, you can't, you're a woman. Well, I can. And you know, I mean, just barrier after barrier after barrier.
QPTV presents Power Women of Queens, a series that highlights the everyday female decision maker, political leader, manager, and scientist as the norm, not the exception. The women featured are everyday women, mothers, wives, sisters, and co-workers whose actions have contributed to the Queens community. A professional violinist, Pat earned a Master's of Science and Education as well as a professional diploma in administration and supervision from Queens College. She is also a retired New York City music educator and administrator. Pat has conducted ensembles in California, Metro New York, and Finland, and is a former president of the Music Educators Association of New York City. Since founding the orchestra in 2012, Pat has been recognized for her work in the music community by the New York City Council and Queensborough President Melinda Katz, and was profiled as a New Yorker of the Week by Time Warner Cable. Pat has lived in Jackson Heights for over 20 years.
Hi, Pat. Thank you so much for joining me at Power Women of Queens.
Thanks, Lucia. It's a great honor to be here today.
Well, we're glad to have you. And what you're doing is absolutely great for the community.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be part of the community and to add this dimension to the diverse culture that Jackson Heights has to offer.
Now, Pablo Picasso once said that you have to have an idea of what you're going to do, but it has to be a vague idea. Was your idea vague to form the Jackson Heights Community Orchestra, or you had a clear picture of what exactly you wanted to do?
Well, I think the basic idea of a community orchestra is pretty clear-cut. You get a bunch of adults together who probably haven't played for a long time, and you offer them an opportunity to make music, and then you have your community orchestra. So that's the clear-cut goal, is to bring people together who've had some musical training and form a group like this. What I particularly wanted to do was not necessarily so clear-cut. I didn't know if I wanted to work with kids, have a kids orchestra, have a kids and adult orchestra. I didn't know exactly how it was going to morph in, how it was going to turn out in the journey. But we're 4 years into the orchestra, and it's definitely an adult orchestra. We have a combination of semi-professional, retired professional, amateur musicians, just a great variety. And we also have a variety of ages. I mean, the youngest is 18, and the oldest is, forgive me, Charlie, but the oldest is 86, I think. So maybe older, younger, around that age group. So you can see it brings a lot of people together with from a lot of different generations, and we share in this common goal.
Now, this is wonderful. Going back to what you said, that you didn't know exactly what you want, maybe for children, maybe for adults. Sometimes we wait till we have a clear picture of what exactly we want in order to start something, but this is clear proof that we don't have to wait. We just have to jump in, do it. And then we see the clear path and we explore different things. Would you say that?
Well,
to be true?
I could say that I waited like 25 years. I mean, it may seem once it started, then the ball just turned into what it's turning into now. And it's definitely not finished by any stretch of the imagination. But I had a plan 25, 30 years ago of having an orchestra. You know, what I wanted to do was conduct, and the opportunities for women back then were not so great. So we were kind of looked at like we had three heads. If you suggested, well, I want to conduct, well, you can't. You're a woman. Well, I can, and you know, I mean, just barrier after barrier after barrier, and finally. When I retired, it was just a natural progression of, okay, I've retired, and I have a lot of free time. So what should I do? And I've always wanted to conduct, and so let's start an orchestra. So I went to the Jackson Heights Beautification Group, and talked to Ed Wesley at that time. He was the president at that time, and he said, "This is a great idea. We would love to help you on this journey." And so that was back in 2011, and in 2012 we started the group, and we haven't looked back since then.
Stay tuned for more Lucia and Pat Glunt.
You know, in 2012, it's like, yeah, right, Pat, you're going to start an orchestra, and they were very skeptical about, you know, how it was going to go. And
hi, I'm Lucia Dragos, and I'm editing Power Women of Queens. Watch QPTV. It's on now. You said that not many women are conductors, so I would assume part of the reason you wanted to start the Jackson Heights Orchestra was to break that stigma.
yes, it was sort of self-serving in one sense. I mean, nobody's going to hire me because, I mean, who knows who I am, right? So
there's no opportunity,
and there was
created
definitely a void in the Jackson Heights community. And since moving to New York, Western Queens has not had that much in the classical music area, and so I always felt that there was a need there. And of course, then 10 years ago, the Astoria Symphony started. So and I was still working, so that wasn't really. I was very happy that organization started, and then that has since turned into a semi-professional group. It's no longer a community group. And there still needed to be an area for amateur musicians, and by amateur I mean people who just don't make their living playing professionally. There still needed to be an area where people could do that. And Jackson Heights was my home and has been my home for a long time, and it just felt right.
I think something like that gives a lot to the community. Would you say giving was also part of the reason you started, and how important is giving for you?
I've been so fortunate with the people who have helped me along the way, and I've never been in a position to reciprocate. So, you know, it's the pay it forward, to coin that phrase of when you're finally able to help out in other ways, and then giving back to the community.
Now, with that being said, the community, it's a place that gives us a sense of belonging. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we're so busy, we underestimate that importance. Would you say that Jackson Heights Community Orchestra unites the people in the community and maybe would inspire other people from different communities to organize their own entertainment?
I have had this discussion a lot with friends who are former string teachers and who have recently retired, and they see what, you know, in 2012, it's like, yeah, right, Pat, you're going to start an orchestra. And they were very skeptical about, you know, how it was going to go, and now they're like, oh, I'm going to do in my community, and I think it's very, I don't want to say it's inspiring, but it's definitely, it shows the possibility that if you have a plan and you have a dream and you can bring people together in a real positive manner, you can pretty much do this everywhere.
Many people need that creative outlet. And how important it is for us as a people to express ourselves creatively?
Well, having been in the music education business for a long time, teaching children how to express themselves through music, and I obviously feel it's very important. It's who we are. It's what makes us humans.
I think you're an absolute pioneer by creating something like the Jackson Heights Community Orchestra, but also I read in your bio that you studied in Finland with the famous conductor Jorma Panula. I hope I pronounced his name correctly.
Jorma Panula, yeah.
Almost? Okay.
Yeah.
At the Sibelius Academy in Finland, at times that it was uncommon for a woman to study at esteemed schools. Would you say you're a trendsetter or a rebel?
Well, I have to backtrack a little bit. I actually went to the Sibelius Academy where Jorma had his conducting class, and I went there to study violin. And I had to sneak into the conducting class. This was one experience where I was very excited about being there, and I went to the headmaster of the school and said, I would like to be in Jorma's conducting class, and he was no, you can't do that because you're a woman. And I'm like, but look at my credentials, you know, these are all the things. And he was like, no way. So I went back to Jorma, and he said, come anyway. And we had a very esteemed group of conductors, Esa-Pekka Salonen, who later became the conductor of the LA Philharmonic, and Jukka-Pekka Saraste, who's had a world career of conducting and is with the Helsinki Radio Orchestra, I believe. But those were just two of the students in that class also. But I think what Jorma really wanted why he let me in the class was because he needed another violinist, because we were all playing while we were practicing the conducting and studying the conducting, and he needed more people to be the orchestra. So I think it was a little self-serving on his part, but he was always very generous to me and always very giving. And the fact that I got to work under him even as a player, I learned so much. You know, I mean, it's not just always about what you learn in the conducting class, but having played in numerous orchestras and worked under wonderful conductors and learning what works and learning what doesn't work and how to bring out the best in people.
After the break, more Lucia and Pat Blunt.
Of bringing everybody together, and you kind of start them together, and you maybe interpret a little bit, and you give a little signal here and there, and you encourage them to play, and you know. But really, playing, that's the scary part, because there's no hiding there.
The most culturally diverse city in the world now has its own show, Culture Express, hosted by Astoria, Queens native Louis Gasparo. Join QPTV and Louis on adventures in Queens and learn more about Queens' art, music, history, and its people. Culture Express, only on QPTV.
Now I want to talk a little bit about fear, because as an artist and performers, we always have that. Ralph Emerson said that you always should do the things that you're afraid to do. How do you overcome your fears?
Well, I certainly wouldn't want to do any bungee jumping, but conducting for me is that's the easy part. I think there's always a fear of failing, you know. Like, do we not do something because, well, what if we're really lousy at it, or what do we lose? Do we lose that dream? I don't know, but I do know that when I'm on the podium, it's where I feel I'm home, and I feel very comfortable there. And I get excited about bringing people together and showing off what we've worked towards and sharing what we've done with others. And this is also true as a violinist. You know, actually I played, we did the Brandenburg concertos the other day, and I played one of the ripieno parts, which is one of the tutti parts. And I hadn't played the violin in 3 years because I've been focusing on conducting, and and the further away you are from it, the more scared you are of starting, because what if it's not working, right? So it was good to get back playing again. It reminded a part of me that of the musician side, of the performance side. And I sort of view the conductor as just kind of the facilitator of bringing everybody together, and you kind of start them together, and you maybe interpret a little bit, and you give a little signal here and there, and you encourage them to play, and but really playing, that's the scary part, because there's no hiding there.
Now, what advice would you give to young aspiring artists that they have an idea and they want to start something just like you did, but they're afraid to do so?
I follow your dreams. That's what, I keep repeating this. Don't ever give up. I mean, I could have given up. At my age, I could have said, well, it's not going to happen. And I'm like, well, who are you kidding? Skitch Henderson started the Pops Orchestra. He was no spring chicken when he started, and he had a good 30 or 25 years with that before he passed. And I look at many of the orchestras now that I've played in, and they were all started by people who were performers, and when they sort of left that segment of their professional career, they started an orchestra with a group of friends, and it morphed into something more, and so that was really my inspiration, that it's never too late. You have to hold on to what you really want to do and what you want to be, because you owe it to yourself.
Great. Now, what is your favorite piece of music?
Well, I thought about that, and I think it'd be easier to say what I enjoy eating more than a piece of music. Music is. I have been asked this for 50 years. I can't answer it. I have still have not been able to say what's my favorite piece, what composer do you like the best. I mean, there's always the question of, if you're on a deserted island, what 3 pieces would you take? And I still don't know. I mean,
it's okay not to know.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yes.
Because what's true today is not necessarily true tomorrow. We discover new things all the time, and maybe the one you're with is the favorite one at that moment.
Well, great. Thank you so much for coming and joining me at Power Women of Queens.
Well, it's been a pleasure. Hey, thank you very much.